Hello, welcome to the Whiskey Lodgecast. I am your host, DemiTastes, and I have with me today Spooky Chicken. And
Hello.
Phill was unable to make it, so it's going to just be the two of us. Good evening, Genji. Thank you for joining. Thank you,
Oh, hey
everyone,
there,
for your
Genji.
patience today as we had a little bit of delays and technical difficulties getting the stream started. And funny enough, one of my technical difficulties was oh man, mirroring myself. I don't know how to open boxes apparently. Um, so it took me way longer to get my drink ready than I expected. I decided that today I'm going to do a comparison of uh old fashions. So I have an On the Rocks brand ready to drink old fashioned in my glass here. I was actually surprised. This seems to be so. This is a 200 milliliter bottle, and that didn't occur to me.
Hmm.
That's actually kind of a lot. I usually do a a single shot of whiskey in my old fashions because I don't like to load up with that much alcohol, especially on ice, because I don't drink very fast. Um, this is going to be like a solid 3 cocktails worth of stuff in this bottle, which is pretty cool. Um, so without having tasted it yet, I guess I can say like it's a good value. It's like I think it's for one of these 200 milliliter sized bottles, it's like $5 or something like that. I have this sampler back here with 6 different cocktails in it. Um,
I think I've seen that brand before as well, but I've never had any of their stuff, honestly.
Yeah, I got this one from Costco for what that's worth. I don't think it's a
Oh,
Costco brand
that's,
or anything.
yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I've gone right on into it. Let's explain what we're doing here. So we kind of didn't come up with an agenda this week, so we thought to ourselves, what do we normally do after dry week? Because last week was our dry week episode, and we just wrapped up dry week, and here we have the week after dry week. And the fun thing about the week after dry week is you've gotten a big palate reset. So if you've been drinking cask strength or otherwise high alcohol percentage spirits, um, it's going to take a couple of days maybe to sort of ease back into those high proof spirits again. I take this as an opportunity to start doing reviews of my stuff that is lower on the alcohol percentage. So the 40%, 43,
Hmm.
45, 46, 47. Because with all the specialty stuff that comes my way, I end up reviewing things that are well in the 50 percentage points of alcohol, and that's tough to get into after you've taken a break for a week. So one of the first things that you're going to start doing to drink, uh, one of the first things you're going to start drinking after dry week is probably going to be cocktails, beer, um, that sort of the low proof 40% type of whiskey, that sort of thing. That's a good idea to start a warm up drink, something that's lower before you get to something that's higher. Um, But here we're talking about going into the next phase of 10 weeks or so of regularly drinking whiskey and reviewing whiskey, and you want to be gentle to your palate at first. Or you make the mistake I made and open up something brand new that you just bought, which happens to be a high proof whiskey, and you experience pain. So that's a cautionary tale. So what I've done for myself today is I've given myself a comparison of 2 old fashions. On my right here, I have my typical brown sugar and bitters with wild turkey old fashioned, and on the left, my left, I have the On the Rocks ready to drink old fashioned, which is notably lighter in color. Um, Brown sugar notwithstanding, I think even the whiskey is just a lot darker. The On the Rocks, for what it's worth, says that it's made with Knob Creek. So that's fun. If I had realized that ahead of time, I actually would have made a Knob Creek Old Fashioned just so that I could have that direct comparison. But as it stands, I was ready to kill this bottle of Wild Turkey behind me. Trying to point to things behind me is hard. This is a handle that I've had for a while, and I have just finished it, which with what happened to be just about 2 ounces of whiskey, which was perfect. And that's ready to get filled up with homebrew wine now, so that'll be fun.
Nice.
All that aside, Ian, what are you drinking today?
Right. So I'm going to be drinking a few different things. I'm taking a slightly different route through this post dry week sort of thing. I mainly stick to a lot of wine and a lot of lower alcohol cocktails. We'll get into some of the stuff I have back here as we kind of transition through our topics today. What I do, however, as well drink is a lot of this stuff. This is I just find it at Trader Joe's every once in a while. It's GT's Alive Mushroom Elixir. This is the lemon lime one. It tastes reminiscent of Sprite, I would say. It's really, really interesting, actually. I'm a big fan of the flavor, but it tastes great mixed with some gin and things like that. And otherwise, I have this lovely whiskey sherry blackberry cobbler right here that I made and have been nursing a little bit since before the stream started. Kind of nice, lighter style of cocktail, not very much whiskey in there at all, honestly. Not compared to the sherry or the sparkling water inside here at the very least. So that's kind of what I like to go with as things are going. As my sort of palate is coming back, I drink quite a lot of wine. I drink a lot more cocktails and things like that, especially since it's so incredibly hot around here. Whiskey just isn't quite the thing I necessarily want to be drinking right now because, as it were, here in Arizona, air conditioning doesn't get you all that far. So going inside doesn't change that much, not necessarily. But I'm really fascinated about your pre-made cocktails, the pre-made, what's the word for it? Pre-made old fashioned, especially. I remember, I think an old fashioned was the first bottled cocktail I ever bought, and it had I don't remember what brand it was. It had the incredibly distinct flavor of bubble gum to it.
Interesting. Um, I don't think I've ever had a canned cocktail. This is literally my
Mm,
first one right now live on stream.
really?
Yeah. I feel like I've just never felt the desire to like if I'm gonna have something that's like ready straight out of a bottle, beer, wine, spirits, neat, right? I don't really usually find myself wanting to open something up, pour it on the rocks, and say, I did an extra step and it has more flavors or whatever. I just usually there's an easier and less expensive option. I guess it's sort of how
Mm.
I feel. But also, you know, before I got into reviewing whiskey, I pretty much didn't drink whiskey at home or didn't drink whiskey that much out either because it's just expensive. But like, it was a rare once in a while holidays, special occasions kind of thing. Before I decided that I wanted to invest in learning more about whiskey.
Mm. There is, I think, in my experience, one place that I think that pre-made or especially canned cocktails really shines, and a lot of places where it doesn't. Place where it really shines, sparkling wine cocktails or like canned Aperol spritzes or Americanos or things like that, where you don't have to open up a whole bottle of sparkling wine or sparkling water or anything like that to have a good thing, and Duckphill has just joined and cut my head off.
Yeah, looks like it.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Hey there, Duck.
once
How
he
you doing?
turns on his camera. Okay, now I'm gonna have to shift people
Well,
around.
this should fix it. If my camera will work, maybe,
Boop,
maybe not.
boop.
Oh, we'll see.
Oh dear.
Oh, this is funny. Do I even? Oh, okay. I know. I know what I must do.
Do you
Um.
now?
Oh, Phil's gone away. I'm gonna.
He was trying to redo his what do you call it? His camera.
And we're waiting, waiting, wait. What? Oh, maybe he thinks we
Whoop.
like kicked him out.
No. He's saying that he might not join if his camera decides not to work because it was not going. Let's see.
I mean, he totally can join voice only. I'm fine with that.
Whoop. Yeah, it looks like Phil, your camera is not working, but that should be totally fine.
Yeah, that's okay. We have his avatar up on screen now. In the wrong
Oh,
spots.
excellent.
Dang,
It should be
dang it.
it should be fine right
You know
now.
what? I think our audience can deal with the fact that your face is in the wrong place, and I'm not going to take up live stream time trying to fix it. That's going to be fine.
Whoop.
Oh,
Ooh, he died. Oh no, I'm cut in half. All right. In any case, while we figure this out, let's see.
I have to have a scene for all eventualities, is what I'm learning. Okay, well, while we're waiting, okay, he's having more technical issues than just the camera.
All right, we will figure that out sometime then. All right.
So you were asking how I feel about this pre-made old-fashioned cocktail.
Absolutely.
So my thought here was I'm gonna give it a fair chance by like adding nothing in terms of garnishes to my handmade old-fashioned, except for the brown sugar and the bitters, which of course are sort of part of the spec. Um, I didn't add any like orange bitters or orange garnish because I figured that the pre-made cocktail would like sort of call for that, but optional or something like that. There's not really much in the way of instructions. So let me just read more carefully just in case. Just says, it literally says, here's the instructions. Pour over ice and enjoy. So they were expecting no garnishes. I suppose you could always do whatever you want. It does say it's made with Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, bitters, and natural flavors. So the and natural flavors is the interesting thing. I wouldn't expect this to taste super artificial because they already have...
How many artificial things can you fit inside of an old fashioned?
Yeah, it's like if you're... Yeah, they've got the majority of the stuff is the bourbon and the bitters. So if any pre-made cocktail was going to be like pretty solid, it should be this. And I would say it is. It does taste very different from the Wild Turkey old fashioned that I have.
I think that some pre-made brands will add in artificial orange and cherry flavors, and those can get kind of weird very quickly overall, I would say. But it sounds like that one doesn't.
I would say it does have... It's clearly been flavored, like, compared to just the bourbon and bitters. And brown sugar, which, I mean, that's very much to my tastes. The On the Rocks brand old fashioned is it's a little sweeter. It's like less intense. I would say that it definitely does have what appears to be the added flavors of orange and cherry. It pretty much nails it. Not as much in the way of brown sugar as I would like.
I see.
Like a little thin, but overall not bad. Like if I was served this in a bar, I'd be perfectly happy with this.
What's the ABV on that one, out of curiosity?
35%. I was surprised. I'm
35. That's way higher than I think I would serve an old fashioned at if I was making it myself. Whoa. Oh no.
Things are happening, but I'm not quite sure.
Things are happening.
The video quality on this one's going to be silly, and we've got a lot of cuts of technical difficulties to do later. Oh, it's going to be a hard one to cut around.
Yeah.
Oh well. But yeah, like I was saying, I would be perfectly happy to receive something that tasted like this at a bar. In fact, I have received at bars old fashions that did not taste this good.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you my story of the well substitution?
No.
This is a fun one. So I was going to a bar after orchestra on Tuesday nights for happy hour. It wasn't really happy hour. It was just a bar that happened to be nearby. And they had kind of a limited liquor selection. They were like mostly beer and like bar food type stuff. So, you know, they had a few bourbons, a few like more on the expensive side scotches that you'd expect to, like, you know, the Macallans were up there and that sort of thing. Like the things that you'd expect if a bar was going to have something in a category, it's going to be the well-known name.
Johnny Walker Green, maybe.
Not even that. They did have Johnny Walker Red. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but everywhere's Johnny Walker Red.
I took a chance. I figured in Washington there was a good chance that any given bar would have Westland. They did not even have Westland. Nothing in the way of American single malt. They did have Tullamore Dew and Tullamore Dew apple cider cask, I think. Apple cider cask, not like flavored apple whiskey.
Tullamore Dew makes an apple cider cask?
If I'm not mistaken, I believe that's what it was.
I used to drink Tullamore Dew. On Sundays, we would, after I got off work back in Maryland sometimes, because it would be like, 9, 10 on a Sunday night. We would go out, we would order a beer from a bar down the street, and we would have a shot of Tullamore Dew after we closed up the bar. And I resolved never to drink Tullamore Dew after that.
Okay,
It was
Phil's gonna
perfectly
hang in
fine,
chat.
honestly.
Excellent.
Excellent. All right, we'll
Cool.
keep an eye out for you, Phill.
Phil, I believe you know the answer to this question, actually. Tullamore Dew makes an apple cider cask as like a standard release, right? And while we wait for the chat to catch up. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Indeed.
I
sweet.
believe Phil was the first one that mentioned that release to me, which is why I asked. I don't remember if I ever actually had any of that at that bar because it was like fine, but not worth the extra cost, I think, pretty much. Anyway, the hack that I came up with at this bar, which was pretty funny, is that they had a well old fashioned, which was like, I don't know, $7 or something. And I asked at one point what the well whiskey was, and it was, I believe it was Early Times. I have it in my notes somewhere, and I meant to publish a review of it and get around to that eventually.
Decent well whiskey, I believe.
Fairly decent, not my jam exactly. And so I decided to just ask if they had Jim Beam, right? Because that's a known quantity for me. And I figured like I know that I like a Beam old fashioned, right? So I'll order a Beam old fashioned. I'm fine with paying a little extra, sure, whatever. I get the bill, and the bill was funny to me. On the bill, it said something along the lines of, however it was that they rang up the Knob Creek, not the Knob Creek, the Beam. However it was that they rung up the Beam was like $5 or $5.50 or $6, something like that, like whatever it was, and then I think it was $5.50. That's what I'm seeming to remember. And then to make it as an old fashioned, they add $1 to the cost of a shot. So the well old fashioned with cheaper whiskey was $7, and the Beam old fashioned with a call whiskey was $6.50.
Damn, I love that kind of stuff.
So I never went back. I just kept on ordering my cheaper, better old fashioned.
Sure, right. Yeah. So speaking of wells and things like that, curious question on a side tangent here. What has your favorite well whiskey at a bar that you've been to been, actually?
I don't know that I've been keeping that much track of it, to be honest. I think
Fair.
Early Times is probably the only one that I like that sounds like a name you would remember, because a lot of well whiskeys are like pretty terrible, like no name garbage tier whiskey.
I mean, you get a lot of old Overholts, which I think is actually a perfectly fine whiskey for cocktails, but I don't generally drink it. For bourbons, what are the general well bourbons that people have hanging around?
Yeah, here's a question. I haven't spent that much time in bars, and I've never been a bartender.
Sure.
Certainly there's a lot of people who will like call the standard like a drink that's built around a particular brand of whiskey. So you have like your Crown and Coke, or your your Jack and Coke, or like I don't know that if I was going to call for a whiskey and ginger ale, I just say whiskey and ginger ale. I don't know that I would call for one, but people would do 7 and 7. You get the Seagram 7 with the 7
totally.
Up. So there's like cocktails that are basically call cocktails, like call whiskey, because they expect to have that. So does anybody call a cocktail? Does anyone ask for a cocktail that is like, give me a whatever with Canadian whiskey? Right? Like, is that like a thing? Does anyone have a well Canadian whiskey? Does anyone just ask for Canadian whiskey, or is Crown so ubiquitous that it's just, whatever your Canadian whiskey cocktail is, it's Crown Royal?
Usually when I go to a bar, I do not assume that people have a Canadian whiskey that is not Crown. Sometimes they might have Whistle Pig, but I don't generally order Whistle Pig in bars, just because price gets a little up there at a certain point right there.
Yep. Phill says Canadian Club. Yes, good point.
Canadian. Okay, yeah, fair, yeah.
Yep. The standard release is usually the cheap Canadian. Yeah. The standard release of Canadian Club would be the well Canadian. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I wonder if people order a Crown and Coke, if the bartender is going to actually give them Crown, or understand that they're probably asking for well Canadian whiskey.
Generally, if someone says Crown and Coke, I will give them Crown as a bartender. Before I will just give them Crown and Coke. Sometimes I've worked at bars where Crown is just weirdly more expensive than whatever the well is. So I'll offer them the well just in case. Because sometimes the Crown is, $2 more, and that's not always necessarily worth it.
Yeah.
But there are I think three big like whiskey and Coke things that people often go for. People often go for a Beam and Coke. People often go for a Jack and Coke or a Crown and Coke. I personally think the best one is Jack Daniels and Coke. I think that just tastes the best personally. But if someone asks for it by name like that, then generally, yeah.
There is something about Jack and Coke. I'm not a big fan of Jack Neat, but Jack and Coke really does have a distinctive quality to it. Yeah. Genji says Jack Daniels and Diet Ginger Ale. I completely agree with that, Genji. For a long time,
Interesting.
my call drink or my go-to drink at a bar was actually whiskey and ginger ale, and I would ask for it sometimes with Jack Daniels. And somebody at one point turned me on to Diet Ginger Ale as like better for cocktails somehow. Probably depends on the brand, but yeah.
Yeah. So what is your Diet Ginger Ale?
Personally, I'd go probably Seagram's.
Seagram's? Okay. Okay. I generally try ginger beer, and some of the ginger beers, the Diet ginger beers are better. Some of them are very bad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Ginger beer is like an upgrade, and I only learned about ginger beer thanks to Moscow Mules, which is or
Really?
a Kentucky Mule is kind of an upgrade. Like substitute the soda and you get lime and soda water, which is like almost 7 Up, which is almost ginger ale. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, that plus the ginger beer, right? Like the lime and the ginger beer is sort of like ginger ale. It's like
So you never.
I think you could probably argue that a Kentucky Mule is a form of an upgrade over a gin and over a ginger or whiskey and ginger ale. Blah.
I would agree. Yeah. No, I think that ginger beer is, in my personal opinion, just better for cocktails. The spiciness, the kind of punch that it brings to a drink, I like it a lot. But also, my favorite ginger beer cocktail is definitely a dark and stormy. I like
Oh
the rum
yeah.
and ginger more than I like the whiskey and ginger myself.
I do like I do like a Moscow Mule, but that's really just because you're going for an alcoholic ginger beer. Um, it's like a good solid drink to order at bars sometimes. I'm trying to remember. So gin and ginger ale was also a call drink of mine for my go-to drink at bars for a while. I sort of
Solid
went
one.
through phases. If I'm sitting in a bar for like a long session, I will sometimes alternate between a gin and ginger ale and a whiskey and ginger ale just to like keep it fresh. I kind of got burnt out on rum and coke. That was like for a long, long
Sure.
time I would just do rum and coke, but that's like a party drink. I don't need a bartender to make that for me.
Hmm.
Um, I
No,
honestly,
yeah.
honestly, like none of those highball type, like one spirit, one mixer type stuff do you really need a bartender for. But if you're hanging out at a bar, um, a buddy of mine and a bunch of his friends used to rent out a bar around Seattle for Halloween every year. And
Oh, that's
they would
super
do
cool.
open bar. Um, and so they would do like Halloween themed drinks, but they were usually variations on the sort of standard call drinks, right? So like at an event like that where I know I'm going to be sitting down and talking to people for 3 hours and I'm not paying for the drinks, um, somebody's getting a tab. But also like I don't want complicated stuff all the time, so I'm going to order off the menu, or occasionally I'll do like my standard, like give me a whiskey and ginger ale, or whatever, right? They could usually do that sort of thing. That's the kind of context in which I would order those sorts of things, and that was it was aside from beer, that was pretty much my when I go out to drink, that was pretty much what I would do. Um, we're gonna have to be good about reading chat today because Phill is talking to us in chat, and we're not doing a good job of reading his messages. So to go back
Oh
a bit,
shoot, Blenheim Whitecap is a good diet ginger beer. I will keep that in mind, Phil. That's excellent.
nice. I've never
You
heard of it
prefer the pink
before,
cap?
so I will absolutely give that a try. Okay, okay. Genji says
Yeah.
usually Canada Dry since it's easy to find at the supermarket. That's yeah. I have like nostalgia for Canada Dry. That's the big box. I think Canada Dry is the one that Coke owns.
I believe so.
I think Seagram's might be Pepsi or Independent. It might be like Dr. Pepper.
What?
There's like Coke,
I
Pepsi, and
think,
whoever owns Dr. Pepper, like the three big soft drink brands.
yeah. So I think Canada Dry. I don't generally drink Canada Dry because Canada Dry was when I was a child, I used to every winter would get horribly, horribly ill with some sort of stomach bug or something like that every year. And every year, whenever I got horribly ill, I would just drink a bunch of Canada Dry ginger ale because apparently it was good for your stomach. I have no idea if it was, but now it's harder for me. It's hard for me to drink that because I associate it with being incredibly ill.
Yeah, I get that. I've always kind of thought of ginger ale as a comfort drink. Like feeling a little
Mm,
bit nauseous, have some ginger ale. Like feeling a little bit sick, have some
yeah,
ginger ale. Like for me, it like makes me feel better. The same way that like,
yeah, totally.
oh, I haven't had it in ages, but have you guys ever had Farina?
Farina.
It's like
I don't
cream of
think
wheat.
so.
It's like basically like a ground wheat hot cereal.
Okay, no, then yes, I do know what that is. I've never had it, but I've seen it.
It's like it's like it's almost like grits kind of, except it's finer. And like normally you would add sweet stuff to it instead of like uh
Cheese.
grits and butter, but like farina and maple syrup or that sort of thing. Yeah, that's like comfort food for me. Although like I just don't consume that many grain products these days, except for all of the whiskey. Uh, but like,
Sure.
but like
Yeah,
for
but
food, I don't really consume grain all that much. It's like
yeah,
rice sometimes, pasta almost never, and
yeah.
like anything else, kind of just
Am
I don't
I?
eat cereal. Oatmeal,
Yeah,
oatmeal's
am
good.
I to assume that oatmeal's great? I love oatmeal. Am I to assume that you have not had very much grits in your life, by the way?
I used to live in Houston. I've had plenty of grits.
Oh, okay. You've had a lot of grits. Do they just eat grits with butter over there? That's just weird to me.
Is it weird? What do you
Um,
eat grits with? So like you'll get grits with
cheese.
sausage. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, you get
Yeah,
cheese in
yeah,
there.
cheese.
But
No,
like
you don't need anything else with it. You just put cheese in it. It
okay,
just
okay,
tastes
but
better.
cheese is butter with extra steps, really.
Sure. Yeah.
Uh um let's see. After the ginger beer, Phil says he enjoys real good ginger ale and ginger beer. And he likes it
Yeah.
hot. Gosling's ginger beer is his easy to get fix. I don't
Gosling's ginger beer is the classic. It's the stuff that if you're at a good tiki bar, that's what they're going to make their ginger beer
mm,
drinks with, like their dark and stormies and things like that. It's the old one. It's the can also buy Gosling's black rum and it makes an excellent drink.
speaking of tiki bars, there's
Yeah.
something about like a nice lightly funky rum and orgeat, like anything that has those two things is gonna be a good cocktail.
Oh yeah. So actually, another quick side tangent here. I've never actually had it. What does orgeat taste like? Because I can't have what is it made out of? Almonds.
Almonds.
So I make it out of oats at home, which is don't get me wrong, excellent. I highly suggest it if you haven't made it. But I have
Okay.
always wondered, like, what is it? What does it do to a drink? What is it like?
It adds like like a so almonds are adjacent to like sweetened almonds are adjacent to artificial cherry,
Mm,
which my wife absolutely hates. She can't stand that flavor. So like sweet almond stuff, almond paste, marzipan, can't do it because it tastes like artificial cherry, which she hates. So that, but orgeat is like way on the nuttier side of almonds. So you get sort of that fruity nuttiness.
I wonder if a sunflower seed or a pumpkin seed orgeat would be nice.
Probably.
Things to try.
Yeah, I think pumpkin seeds would probably be a good substitute.
I might try that this coming week then. That would be a pretty fun one to kind of check. But yeah, no, that kind of funky rum, in my case, the oat orgeat that I made at home and kept around for a little while was just beautiful with a good funky rum. I have access to a lot of it these days, but from Del Bac, the old Pueblo, our smoked mesquite smoked new make, is really really funky in the same way that some rums are funky. So I use it as a replacement for a good funky rum in a lot of cases. Yeah, experimental syrups with Ian. That's a fun one. I really enjoy weird experimental syrups. Things
That
like
might be
that. I
a
make a
whole
lot of them.
episode, to be honest, especially if you can like send us some. That's probably a horrible thing.
Oh, that wouldn't be.
You could legally send that in the mail, but that's probably a horrible thing to put in the mail.
See, the thing is that I'd probably need to be way more careful about packaging those, because if that leaks, everything is just gone.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
I mean, there's
like,
also
you can do a lot with film and saran wrap. You can contain a lot of mess.
That's fair.
And I'm just gonna leave it at that.
This past week, my what I made was a, what do you call it? Star anise rich simple syrup, essentially a double simple syrup. Very, very sweet. I used the latter half of that actually to make my own vermouth quite recently.
Nice.
Very, very spicy vermouth that I made just to get a bottle of Muscadet Sèvres at Maine that I had in my fridge, just kind of out of the fridge. Deeply bizarre wine to make vermouth out of, but it turned out quite surprisingly well.
Could I get that
I would
name
like
again?
to experiment a little bit more. Muscadet Sèvres at Maine, a very, very light, almost water white wine, most commonly served with oysters.
I was gonna say Gesundheit right after you said the name, but you kept talking.
Sorry, I went into the explanation before you could. My bad.
No, that's fine. So, don't leave us hanging. What's the rest of the recipe for making vermouth?
Right. So this is a very, very simple vermouth. In this particular case, I took about 1 cup of the wine, and I boiled it with, or simmered, I should say, simmered it with a bunch of spices. In this case, I got green cardamom, star anise, a little bit of cloves, and then I have this random packet of mulling spices in my pantry, and I just tossed some in there as well. Simmer that for, I don't know, I probably did it for about 10 minutes. Now, naturally, this 1 cup of wine, more or less no alcohol left in there by the end of that process, I believe. Don't quote me on that. And then I take that essentially steeped wine. I add it back in with 2 cups of the normal wine. In this case, I added about kind of sugar to taste. Actually, I didn't do a specific measurement of sugar. I didn't want it to be too sweet. And then I popped in about half a cup of apricot brandy from up in Washington, I want to say. And then half a cup of Pedro Jimenez sherry to kind of finish it off.
Okay.
The result is a very, very spicy vermouth. Now, vermouth, classically, we won't get too far into this. One day that'll be a topic of an episode or something like that. Vermouth classically has wormwood in it, similar to absinthe and things like that. Didn't have any wormwood on hand, so think of this more so as an aromatized fortified wine, essentially.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask you for the recipe that you just gave me so I can put it in the YouTube comments.
Absolutely.
So yeah, check the description down below later. You know, when we put this on
add vermouth
YouTube.
episode to the list.
Yeah. I mean, we can put it on this one and later, whatever.
Yeah. No, that was
yeah. Phill is saying, Phil is saying
yeah.
add the vermouth. All right, fine. I still,
We
I've
need to
still,
find the-
I've
we
still
need to
got
find the
my,
old list.
I've still got my sticky note here, and a
Oh,
Sharpie.
that's where the list is, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it's also in a spreadsheet theoretically somewhere.
Somewhere.
We have 2 spreadsheets, and neither of them have this list. There's a
But
Discord channel that has this list
is there? Oh God, there is
somewhere.
Isn't there?
It's in there for sure. It's in there. Oh man.
But yeah, no, I mean, I always one of my big things is I really highly suggest people getting into just kind of making their own concoctions at home, essentially. Biggest thing, you almost will never need to buy simple syrup outside or beyond just like the ingredients to make it or anything like that. Even really, really nicely flavored simple syrups, things like vanilla or caramel or spiced simple syrups and things like that. These are not only not hard to make, they're some of the easiest things to make. I mean, it's just sugar, water, and spices and things like that in a lot of cases. So highly suggest that. Maybe we'll do an ongoing thing because I make a lot of random things that I don't even necessarily share with people sometimes. But
Yeah.
I will start keeping track of these things a bit more.
Ian keeps us honest because Phil and I drink mostly whiskey, but Ian actually has a variety of interests, which is good for the podcast. All right, let's go back and read some comments that I think we missed. Just to do justice there. Maybe we'll think about something to talk about from some of these comments.
Ooh.
So when I was talking about the Tullamore Dew cider cask, Phil says he has a bottle. It was pretty good, very sweet and heavy on the finish influence. I completely agree. I think the standard Tullamore Dew and the Tullamore Dew 12 are much superior, but I think the Tullamore Dew cider cask would be great in a cocktail, which I did not try.
Well, you're going to get a chance to try a cider cask, not a cider cask, actually, an apple brandy cask pretty soon here. But do tell me if that works in any cocktails.
Yeah, nice. I'm endeavoring to try more of my stuff in cocktails, partly because I have way more liquid than I could possibly drink neat.
Yeah.
And I've started to realize I was pouring some samples to give to a friend. The guy whose scotch collection I inherited because he's leaving town. I was pouring a bunch of samples of stuff that he might be interested in as in exchange for whole bottles, right? What a fair exchange, right? Giving him 1 or 2 ounces of something in exchange for an entire bottle of,
I mean,
or like
I would trade a
third.
whole bottle for some of the samples that you have. I'm gonna be real with you, my guy.
I got to
Some of the old Bunnahaven, like God, I would pay a whole bottle for that.
Speaking of some of that old Bunnahaven, I actually gave him 2 ounces of one of those old Bunnahavens because it was named after his daughter,
Oh.
or rather his
Oh,
daughter.
seriously?
His daughter was named the same as, and I'm not going to say the name. So
Fair
I'm
enough.
not going to dox my friends, but or their children. But yeah, trading 1 ounce of something expensive for a third of a bottle of something not so expensive, totally fair, right? Totally fair. But yeah, it's better. The perspective is it's better for those things to be in the hand of someone who can drink them than somebody who's can't take them across the country or out of the country. Anyway, yeah, I will try more of my stuff in cocktails because I can definitely drink more in a cocktail than I can neat. As I found out on Tuesday, when I was pouring this friend's samples, now I remember what I was saying. When I was pouring this friend's samples, I had some fresh bottles that I wanted him to try. It's really hard to pour a fresh bottle into a sample bottle.
Yeah.
So I poured, a full, I never pour 1.5 ounces. Right. I poured a full 1.5 ounces into a Glencairn just to like lower the level of the bottle so that I could actually pour the bottle into the sample bottle. And then I put a cap on it and waited until the next day. So I had 3 full glasses of whiskey that I needed to drink. It took me, I was up way too late Tuesday night. I was up till like 2:30 just because I was finishing a full glass of whiskey. That's how long it takes me.
That's wild, my
I just
guy.
left. This, in fact, is one of the whiskeys I poured on Monday, and it has had a cap on it the whole time. And as you can see, it is still pristine, clear, and ready to drink. This one's only an
This is
ounce.
what the distillers do at my work sometimes. They'll head out for the weekend and I'll come in on like a Saturday or something like that. And there will just be just glasses of whiskey with little watch glasses just sitting around. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know what whiskey's in them. Like I don't know when they're tasting them or what's happened with that. They'll just be around. And this is, to be clear, in a whole distillery. It gets, this time of year, it gets up to like 95 degrees inside the distillery. Like I don't know if those are any good after that.
One would hope.
One would hope.
Oh, I shouldn't share this on stream. Let's say I made a mistake and left a rather expensive whiskey in the garage.
Ooh, okay.
I'm hoping, although because it's expensive, I'll never have a chance to compare. I'm hoping that letting it stay at room temperature for, and I only left it there for a week. I'm hoping that letting it stay at room temperature for a while lets it normalize and become itself again and didn't completely permanently ruin it. Because, that hurt when I discovered that mistake.
In my experience, and now I've done a lot of things to whiskey that people would not be happy about. Whiskey can survive a bit of heat shock. Now, I know some Scots that would stab me for that statement.
It's aged in the cold and murky and gloomy. How could it possibly still be good if you put it in Texas?
But a lot of whiskeys have been able to hold up to a certain amount of heat shock. But I remember I moved a case of wine down from Idaho to Arizona in August at some point. Oh boy, none of those bottles survived. Ooh, it was bad.
That's too bad. I'll say this.
Yeah.
I did a fun experiment. We have no agenda today. And just to clarify for chat, we essentially had no agenda today other than the broad topic of what do you drink after dry week. So we're all tangents today, and that's fantastic because it probably means there's nothing worth editing after this episode.
Everything just leads into everything else. It's great.
So I did a fun experiment. I had a really funky rum, super strong on the butyric acid, which basically is like the vomit smell, although Americans will know it as the milk chocolate smell if it's in low enough quantities. Butyric acid. It's good for rum because when butyric...
The Hershey's chocolate smell?
Yeah, Hershey's chocolate.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's good for rum because if your new make rum has a little bit of butyric acid in it, and then you age that, just basically let it sit with alcohol for a while. Alcohol plus butyric acid in the right concentrations and with the right catalysts and blah, 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 will make ethyl butyrate, which is pineapple ester.
Really?
Yeah. This rum had too much of it, so it still smelled like vomit, basically, or dirty feet or gym socks, whatever. So I said, okay, what if I add heat, right? It's got plenty of alcohol. It's got plenty of ethyl. It's got plenty of butyric acid. So what if I add heat to this rum? So what I did was I put it in a hot water bath. I put some in a Glencairn. I just wanted to see. I put some in a Glencairn and put it in a hot water bath, like 190 degrees Fahrenheit, not boiling, for safety reasons. Also because like putting a Glencairn in a rolling boil would not work out very well, I think. So like I heated up some water in a kettle. I poured it into a bowl. I put the Glencairn in there with this rum inside. I put a watch glass on top of it, right? Like as a control, I want to let no vapors escape. Okay. Having heated this up. By the way, I told Joe O'Sullivan about all of this because he loves when I get nerdy. He's like, I told him, hey, I'm doing a chemistry experiment. He said, what chemistry? I said, I've got a mixture of butyric acid and alcohol, and I want to see what happens if I add heat to it. Does it get better? Right. So I did all this, and then I took the cap off, and it smelled like pears. I was expecting pineapple, right? I was expecting the heat would make that reaction to the pineapple ester work, but like everything is complicated. So the pineapple ester mixed with whatever else was in there, it ended up tasting like pears. Interestingly enough, because there's kind of an equilibrium reaction here, it's not a one-way thing. When it cooled back off, it was indistinguishable from before I had heated it up. That was the really interesting part.
Fascinating, actually.
So heat alone didn't solve this problem. I think Paolo would tell us that this is obvious, probably, because he's a chemist. Hang out in the lodge. We talk about nerdy shit.
Yeah. So speaking of chemistry, I'm actually going to follow this up with another story. Also, Phill, I see your heresy inside the comments, and we'll get to that in a second. But I actually have one time where I heated up a spirit of mine just to kind of see what happened. Terrible mistake. I was a very young man at the time. But what I had done was I had discovered krupnik, a Polish style of honey liqueur. Now, I love honey. I collect honey. In fact, I try to go around to as many like local makers of honey as I can and just grab their honey because I think it tastes amazing. I think there's an excellent kind of style of terroir that comes with honey. But in this particular case, I had about a pound of honey, didn't really know what to do with it. So I grabbed some Everclear and I made some krupnik. Now, krupnik is a very, very strong honey liqueur from Poland. You generally make a honey syrup of sorts and you water down a neutral grain spirit with that kind of spiced honey syrup that you've made to a certain extent. Now, the krupnik that I have made, those giant jugs of apple juice? Martinelli's, I want to say. I think they're Martinelli's apple juice. Giant jugs of apple juice, like a gallon jug of apple juice. So I had one of these gallon jugs. It was empty. I'd filled up the whole thing with about 55% krupnik. And at the point where I wanted to taste it, I tried it and I thought, all right, this is excellent. Very sweet, very spiced, wonderful. Now, what I had heard was that over in Poland during the winter, they would drink it hot. So what I did was I microwaved this krupnik for a little bit, and that is exactly the jug of cider that I was thinking of. You put it up on screen.
Yeah.
So I microwaved it. It was hot. Now I have hot, like 55% alcohol. So I, in my infinite wisdom as a young man, thought, what if I set this on fire?
No.
So this is at about, I want to say 3 p.m. The sun is still up. It is not going to be up for very long. It is the winter. It's like on the weekend or something like that. So this krupnik is hot. It's sitting in one of those old like footed Crown Royal glasses. So I stick a little lighter in. I light it on fire. Now, here's something I didn't know as a young man. I thought that when you burned ethanol, when you burned alcohol vapors, they would burn blue because generally they do. Now, and Phill has made this comment in the thing: ethanol, when it is evaporating at a certain point, will burn clear. So I was like, that doesn't look like it actually lit. I don't know what's going on. The glass was very hot though, so I left it alone. I turned around. I walked about 2 steps. The glass fucking explodes.
Well, good thing you walked away.
Good thing I had walked away. Yes, the glass explodes. I have no more krupnik. This is the end of the story. I had to clean it up before my parents came home because I was doing this, as it were, in their kitchen. But
is this the right Crown Royal? Is this the right Crown Royal glasses or
Exactly that Crown Royal glasses. I love those Crown Royal glasses with the little feet at the bottom, some nice kind of eggshell thin glass going up the side. Very, very nice heavy glasses. Good to put ice in and things like that. Wonderful, wonderful glasses.
Until they explode.
Weirdly enough.
Are you okay? Explode. Were you okay? Like, I mean,
somehow, yes.
No blood.
I've had a lot of run-ins with broken glass in my time. Somehow that one did not end up as one of them. I was not injured at all. Interestingly enough, the glass shattered. But because the fact that it was the flame that had heated up the glass to shattering, the actual Krupnik, the actual spirit, was still in the bottom because it was not nearly as hot on the bottom as it was up further up in the glass where the actual flame was. Suffice to say, I did not drink it because then the bottom of that was still filled with broken glass. But yeah, interesting times.
Why wouldn't you drink that? Oh man. Yeah,
So
ethanol
that's
burns
my
clear.
story. I've never
Wait,
heated
okay,
up a
yeah, so
spirit.
correct. Ethanol burns clear. Why did you think it was blue?
Right. So sometimes when ethanol is in solution with water, it will burn blue. I do
Okay.
not know the precise chemistry behind this. For instance, if if you've ever made crêpe Suzette or anything like that,
Yeah.
burn Grand Marnier, it will burn blue. This is a thing that happens sometimes. There's a difference in some ways between ethanol that is in solution with other chemicals and ethanol that is pure. Ethanol that is more pure burns completely clear. Absolutely terrifying, quite honestly. But ethanol that is in solution with other chemicals will burn this kind of bright shade, very wonderful shade of blue,
Hmm.
which is what you see if you look up a video of crêpe Suzette or anything where someone lights a spirit on fire and pours it over something. You'll
Oh
often
man.
see this kind of flickering blue flame on there.
Did you ever see the how to drink with the burning cocktail? I forget what its name was. I'm gonna try to find
Was that the burning the like flaming Dr. Pepper or some shit? Because that's a very popular cocktail that I've never seen. Phill says lighting is the key, and I do not know. I do not know how to light things, how to make things burn correctly, I would say.
I think you might mean actual like room lighting, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah, no, I was sitting in the living or not in the living room, in the kitchen at like 3 in the afternoon. It was sunlight. I couldn't see a damn thing from that glass.
Wow. Greg has done a lot of burning cocktails.
Has he? I
Shoot.
love Greg's stuff.
Or I mean stuff. Why can't I find this? Can you search someone's channel only?
Maybe. That's a great question. I'm not sure.
Flaming. Yes, you can. You can. And broke my toe making a flaming moe, made a flaming bag of gasoline, flaming drink from a wonderful life, the most dangerous drink in the world, the blue blazer. This
Oh, yeah, no, Phill just said something about a blue blazer, and I was unsure of the reference. What is the blue blazer?
it's a flaming cocktail. It's like an antique flaming cocktail. And so oh man, okay, yeah, here. I'm just gonna put a still on the slideshow so you can see. I'll put the link because I've talked, multiple minutes about it now. I'll put a link in the comment or in the description. Here we go. So here's Greg pouring a blue blazer from mug to mug. And he had to do in the dark.
Oh my lord!
Right, this is very apropos of lighting that Phill mentioned, right? That they filmed this originally in the full light of the room, but you can't quite see the flames. If you do it in the dark, you get much better flames on video. So they had to shoot it again, and his comment in the video was something along the lines of, "This was terrifying and I had to do it twice."
That's awful. There are some flaming cocktails that I legitimately quite enjoy. Most of them I think are a little bit more dangerous than I'm willing to be a part of. But I worked at a Swiss place back in DC at some point, and they every winter they would come out with this wonderful cocktail called a Feuerjange. And the Feuerjange was mulled wine with an absinthe spoon with a sugar cube on top of it. Now, what we would do when we first started this whole when we first started serving Feuerjanges is we would take Stroh 151 rum and we would heat it up and we would set it on fire and pour it over the sugar cube so it would kind of caramelize and melt into the drink. It was excellent. I think at some point they realized that Stro 151 was a bit too, how to say, volatile. So they switched that over to I think Goldschlager or something like that. Honestly, nice kind of cinnamon liqueur.
Isn't Goldschlager the one that has the gold flakes in it, or was that a special release?
Exactly. No,
Okay.
it always has the gold flakes in it. Gold flakes,
Okay.
surprisingly inexpensive.
Are they though? There's a great channel. I'll put it in the description. Well, it's a BuzzFeed channel, but there's a series called Worth It. Highly recommend. What they do is they pick a category and they say, we're going to go to a cheap, medium, and expensive priced restaurant for this food. And then they sort of discuss like what was the best value. And it's a lot of fun. Phill says 151 has a tendency to burst due to vapor expansion when exposed to high heat. Yeah, that sounds right.
Worrying.
I think for high proof stuff, like you really, Bananas Foster Flambe, one of my favorite things.
Oh, amazing, beautiful, gorgeous.
Also one of my greatest disappointments. We'll get to that. One of my favorite things is they usually make it tableside and they light it on fire, right? Or you do it in your home kitchen, you light it on fire. You kind of need a gas stove or a portable lighter, butane lighter, to do it. But you need to put alcohol in there that is strong enough to catch fire and nothing more than that. I wouldn't do 151. I would pick like a high proof, something like 125. Usually rum. Rum and bananas go well together. Usually rum. Come to think of it, I don't know if I have any overproof rum. I really should get some. I need to make bananas. I don't
currently, but I
need to make some Bananas Foster Flambe.
My favorite overproof rum is definitely Plantation OFTD. But there's a bunch of excellent ones out there on the market as well. Stro is good, but it's way harder to find.
Pop quiz. What does OFTD mean?
Oh fuck, that's dark.
I thought it was oh fuck, that's delicious.
I forget what it was on the thing. What is it? What is the thing that they say it actually means? It's like old fashioned something or something like that.
You're gonna make me look it up now.
It really means oh fuck, that's like darker. Oh fuck, that's delicious.
OFTD can, depending on context, mean out for the day.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, once you have a little bit of it, that is definitely true.
Yeah, right. Am I really going to check Urban Dictionary for this? Okay, outfit of the day. No, that's OOTD.
Old-fashioned traditional dark, according to the Whiskey Exchange.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, fuck, that's delicious.
Yeah. It's some good stuff. Oh, I didn't remember that it was 69%. That's excellent.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, I need to have more overproof stuff.
Phill says the only overproof rum that he has is the Ray and Nephew, which is, I think, one of the most well-regarded ones out there, honestly. Like, people love Ray and Nephew.
Okay, that one is 126 proof. That's perfect. That's what I would use for Bananas Foster. Yeah. Phill says 55 to 57% is a good proof for lighting. Yeah. Especially like if you're pouring it into a sauce, it's going to get diluted a little bit. It needs to hold up to that and still light. He says 69%. I need a bottle. Yep.
It's a great rum as well. Like, it tastes really good.
And it's not too expensive, right?
It's about, I think, well, so it used to be, I remember only a few years ago, it was like $35, which was a great price. These days, I think it's like $45, which is quite good, honestly, for what it is. It's
if you think, okay. If you think about what you're getting, in terms of alcohol
It's
content.
it also only comes in liter bottles, to be clear.
Yeah, there you go. In
Yeah.
fact, here we have it. Total Wine. I'm not a shill for Total Wine. I would say I'm the opposite of a shill for Total Wine, but that's sort of the best place to check prices. So yep, here you go. Plantation OFTD. Here in Washington is $43 plus taxes for 1 liter. Not bad. Again, considering what you're getting, 69% alcohol, right? And good spirits. Not
Good spirits.
Yeah, not like Everclear, which is designed to be as high proof as possible. Don't care about the flavor. This is tasty stuff.
Yeah, this is you use this in cocktails. This is excellent. Wouldn't suggest drinking it neat, but I have before and it's very good.
Yeah, back to the top of the episode. Make sure you have a warm-up drink first.
Oh yeah. No, this one is great in things like a planter's punch. If you really just feel like you don't want to do anything for the rest of the day, use this in a what is that one called with Campari? That one is a
Here, I'm feeling cheeky, so I'll just put this up on screen.
go for it.
Total Wine.
Jungle Bird. Use it in a Jungle Bird if you feel like nothing else is going to happen for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know if I've ever had a Jungle Bird, but I've heard things.
I had a Jungle Bird the other day. It was wild. I made it to while I was cleaning up my house, and then I drank about half of it and had to lie down in a bed for an hour.
Yeah, yep. That sounds right. Okay, so on the note of other overproof rums, Phill says the Ray and Nephew is funky and potent, but too many off notes in the petrol-y area. Interesting. I want to try it because I don't necessarily think that the petrol direction is an off note in rum. I think it's in fact desirable.
I like the petrol direction in rum.
Yeah. So, tastes differ, but that's an interesting point.
Let me see what
Phill
percent
says,
is.
I am the dude who decided that I had to taste all the ingredients for cocktails on the show I was on, right? Ranger's Respite, including absinthe, Gosling's 151, and Ray and Nephew. Not too many. Yeah.
I will absolutely bear that cross for this particular series.
Yeah, I think honestly, if you're a home mixologist or a bartender, you are doing yourself a disservice if you don't taste all of your ingredients.
Water them down first sometimes.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, absolutely. Taste your ingredients. Like, figure out what's going on. I mean, it's a lot of the same way. You get to be a significantly better cook if you just try things the way that they are, and then figure out how to better cook, a better bartender. Try things the way that they are and figure out how you want those flavors to go together and all that. Another good overproof rum that I would suggest. Now, let me figure out exactly how much this one is. Smith and Cross should be sitting pretty at around, pardon me while I try to read a tiny thing. I want to say that Smith and Cross is about 57% alcohol. So not quite as overproof as some of the other ones. Very, very funky. Less so on the petrol note, more so on the kind of weird fruit notes in some cases.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Here, let me put that up on the slide also. Excuse me.
Smith and Cross also sitting pretty at just above $30 a bottle, I would say.
Mine's 42 plus taxes.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, Washington is not a good place to buy alcohol, it turns out.
Wouldn't suggest it. Tis a crying shame, really.
Let's see. Let's get the Ray in. As long as we're doing pricing here. Let's get the Ray and nephew.
Ray and nephew is like $20 something, I think. Let me go grab some Smith and Cross. I'll be right back. One moment.
For me, it is $30.
So yeah, I have a bottle of Smith and Cross right here. Beautiful label. 57% alcohol. This is traditional Jamaican rum, all pot stilled rum. It has 2 cocktails on the back of its bottle that I didn't actually know were there because I didn't read the back of the bottle until now, apparently.
Well, they know
The
what they're about.
The Million, 1 3/4 Jamaican rum, 3/4 lemon juice, 3/4 simple and Angostura. And then the Doctor, which is 1 ounce of Swedish punch, 1 ounce of Jamaican rum, and 1 ounce of lime juice.
Wait, did you say that calls for a 3/4 of an ounce of bitters?
No. This is it doesn't have a particular. It looks like 2 dashes of
Oh,
bitters. I would say.
Okay.
There is a cocktail that I love that calls for that much bitters, though.
I wouldn't have thought of as bitters. I wouldn't have thought of bitters as a significant cocktail ingredient until I had a cocktail called the Bitter Gene,
The Bitter Gene. That sounds wonderful.
which was like 8 dashes of Angostura bitters and like a full measure of Speyside Scotch and like a third of an ounce of Isla Scotch, so the really smoky. I used Glenlivet and Ardbeg and a few other
All
ingredients.
right.
I think creme de cassis was one of the ingredients, which is why I made that
Beautiful.
cocktail.
Yeah, there needs to be more cocktails out there with creme de cassis. Now, bear with me for a moment here, because one of my favorite cocktails in the world is something called a Trinidad Sour.
Okay.
Now, a Trinidad Sour is 1.5 ounces of Angostura bitters, a half an ounce of rye whiskey, 1 ounce of orgeat, and 3/4 ounce of lemon juice, and it is delicious. It's so good.
Yeah.
Highly suggested if you can find that many Angostura bitters to kind of like just have to put into a drink.
I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast before, but I had a friend. There was a bar we used to go to. Rotating taps, like they had like 30 rotating taps, different beers. Calling it a bar almost felt wrong. It was a tap room, right? They didn't do food or anything.
Sure.
They just had taps. And they also had like a you could buy wine and take it to go. They at the checkout counter, they had Bundaberg bitters.
Bundaberg makes bitters? I didn't know that.
Apparently. And on the label, which was wrapped in paper, right? It's like this tiny shot bottle, 2 ounce or 1.5 ounces, whatever.
Like crinkled brown paper kind of style?
Crinkled brown paper. It's part of the packaging. The labeling is all on the
Beautiful.
outside. And it says to be consumed as a digestive.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're there, and there's like restaurants next door. I feel like I may have mentioned this on the podcast before. There's like restaurants in the area. So like we get like this spicy fried rice from the teriyaki place next door, have a couple of beers, and then this friend of mine buys, right? I just bought this and I used it as bitters on my on my bar cart, right? He bought this, opens it up on the spot, and chugs it. He's German, so he probably had some idea of what he was doing. And I was like, dude, you just drank bitters. He was like, yeah, it says it's a digestive. I'm like, okay, was it good? Like, it was fine, I guess. He just did a
I've
shot.
had straight bitters before. they're surprisingly not as bad as you would think that they would be. But they're weird. They're a weird one.
All right, let's get back to reading some comments because we are
Absolutely.
unfortunately missing a lot of the comments that go by. Yeah, so after Phill said I'm the dude who decided I want to taste all the ingredients for cocktails on the show I was on, um, he clarified he meant too many petrol off notes, not just that there were petrol notes, just too many.
No, he said not too many.
Oh, not too many. Okay. Interesting.
Oh, I see.
I'm confused.
Oh, we misread that. Not too many off notes in the petrol area. Okay, I see now.
Oh, okay, great.
We just misread that.
Okay, yeah, we totally had that backwards. Yeah, just the right amount. Excellent. He also says, I don't remember what I don't know when this comment showed up. He said the trouble with doing
could have been
that.
about the jungle juice. Could have been about overproof rum. Could have been a lot of drinking stuff we've been talking about for a minute here.
Rum cocktails are dangerous. I think it's fair to say. The trouble with drinking overproof rum cocktails is if you aren't smart about it, you find yourself laying on the kitchen floor waiting for the cabinets to stop spinning. Yes. That is the thing. I don't think kitchen floor. I have been in a friend's basement, sitting on the floor,
one time,
waiting for the shelves to stop spinning. Yeah.
One 4th of July, I woke up sitting underneath a tree outside my coworker's house. That was a rough time. I called an Uber, but that was a weird one. But
responsible
no,
choice.
yeah, responsible. Oh yeah. Oh, I also just didn't drive at that point in my life.
Yeah. And I don't know what this was about. We had rums on screen. Phill says he paid about 32 for his bottle of. Was it Ray and Nephew? Yeah.
It was Ray and Nephew. Or it was Smith and Cross. The worst time that Phill has ever gotten drunk was Ranger's Respite. Not Ranger's Respite. His friend's wedding. What the fuck am I talking about? I just completely misread that comment.
His name is Ranger's Respite.
His name is Ranger's Respite. No, yeah. Related note, I suppose. I think the second worst time that I've been drunk was on the third episode of this podcast.
I have to go back and watch that now.
I forget which. No, that was the thing, because I managed to hold it together, but it was during the interview with Joe Sullivan from Clear Creek.
Let's see, what was our third episode? So we had labels.
I forget which one was.
May the Flavor Be With You was our third episode. So we did our cocktails. Yeah, we did our cocktails. I am projecting that so chat can see. Yeah.
But on the episode where we interviewed Joe Sullivan, beautiful guy, wonderful man. I had not had whiskey in some time. It had been about 2 weeks at that point, I think. And I had just kind of forgotten what I was doing. And I had this bottle of McCarthy's that I just opened. It was the first time I was properly drinking McCarthy's. And I think about 3/4 of the way through the episode, I looked at that bottle. And it was about 1/4 gone, and I realized, oh, this is not going to end well. So I held it together. We got off, and I just sat in my bed. Just world was spinning. It was awful. Generally, being drunk, not a very fun time. Honestly, that's why we generally drink the way that we do. Only pour about 1/2 ounces at a given time. Drink them very, very slowly. But yeah.
Speaking of McCarthy's, that thing that I poured that I didn't finish on Tuesday that I've been keeping until now was the McCarthy's PX.
Ooh, the PX. Yeah.
So that's what I'm drinking now. Excellent stuff.
Also, Phill said that at his friend's wedding, they drank a 1.75 of Jameson between 2 people.
No,
had to call out from work
really
the following day because they were still drunk. That's insane, my guy.
Okay. No judgment.
No judgment.
How do you get that drunk and not have genuine alcohol poisoning?
I don't. That is a great question, actually, because it had to be over a long period of time, roughly.
Yeah, I guess it must have been like a whole evening, but like if my BAC goes much over that 0.08, I am gonna be friends with the toilet.
Yeah. So generally, rule of thumb with adult males is, if I remember my math correctly, um, at like 45%, a whole bottle of whiskey will just kind of outright kill you if you drink it in like under an hour or so.
I don't know that
Um,
anybody could drink a whole bottle of whiskey in under. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that.
yeah, you shouldn't say that. I think I know some people that have tried. From
Um,
8 p.m. to 1 a.m. ish. That's 5 hours right there, my guy. That's we can do the math on that if you want, but god damn.
you're gonna make me do the math on this, aren't you?
Well, I sure ain't doing that. I
Five
don't know how to do
hours, and you
math.
can basically get back 0.02 in about an hour. Is kind of the way that I think about it. I got
Your
that
body
from
can
somewhere.
process point. Your body can process that much alcohol in about an hour.
I think that's based on the alcohol tables of drinks and so on that I haven't looked at in a long time. I think that's what it is, at least for men my size.
Mm.
Oh boy. All right. 1.75 liters divided by how many ounces those are. Divided by 2 times 0.02 minus 0.08. Jesus Christ. Are you sure?
Got it. Because I only did the math did the math on how much alcohol they were drinking. They were drinking about, on average, 1.75 liters of I'm sorry, 0.175 liters of alcohol every hour, which is wild.
Oh my god, that's if my math is not wrong, which it might be, that's a 0.52% alcohol. I'm pretty sure that would kill you.
Wait, a 0.52 like blood alcohol content?
Uh-huh.
I think that's death, but I'm not sure.
All right, let's table this discussion. um Suffice it to say, Phil's comment is I do not recommend it. And also
No,
the
yeah.
the call out from work the following day because still drunk is consistent with that.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
boy.
yeah, yeah.
Oh man. I can't even think about that. I think the most I've ever done in a night, and it was a long night, bar crawl, all that, 13 drinks. And I was not okay.
Sure.
Was friends with the toilet that night. And ended up having to clean a big old pot at my friend's place. That was the closest thing near at hand that I needed to relieve myself into.
The general rule of thumb is that taking too much of any sort of inebriant um, substance is not going to be a very good time. Um, some people find this out the hard way. Some people do not. Some people find it out the hard way and then continue doing it for various different reasons. But I mean, like in general, probably just don't.
I should
Um,
clarify what I meant by that last comment because I feel like
yeah.
relieve myself is potentially a misleading term. I couldn't reach a toilet. I needed a pot.
Ah,
And I'm
oh,
talking
I see now.
I'm talking about the contents of my stomach.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. This was assumed.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. No, don't worry.
in the context, it may have been unclear. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Phil, I
The
absolutely get that. Phil did not do much anywhere near that much drinking since that point, and also did not drink for about a month after, which is fair.
yeah.
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 I'm surprised that you managed to stay into whiskey, because a lot of people that I've known that have done things similar
Ugh.
to that with things like rum or rum, vodka, tequila is a really big one. I hear that all. I've heard that all the time as a
Yep.
bartender.
Yep.
People just hate
The
tequila
quote,
because
can't drink
they,
tequila because I have bad memories associated with
yeah,
it or whatever.
It's
Yeah,
insane.
yeah, yeah. I think I'm past. There was one time I got really sick and I couldn't. Oh, it was the greatest shame because I love single malt whiskey. I could not be around single malt whiskey for weeks. Ah, that was a shame.
Hmm.
Glad I got over
Yeah.
that because that is the best kind of whiskey.
Oh, we were talking about something earlier. How do you feel about single malt cocktails? Like, what's your if you chose one, what would it be?
Bitter Gene. It's the only one I've had that I felt was really good. A Godfather's okay. Speyside,
Godfathers are nice.
yeah, Speyside whiskey. For people who don't know, so I talked about Bitter Gene before. Creme de Cassis, bitters, Speyside Scotch, Isla Scotch, smoky Scotch. That's a nice combination. It is bitter. It's also kind of sweet and the smoky, and it all works out. Um, yeah, I think the only other cocktail that I felt like was actually worth a malt whiskey, um, was the Godfather. And you've got to be in the mood for a sweet drink. So the Godfather is amaretto and single malt Scotch in I think equal measures, or maybe it's a 2-to-1.
I believe it's a 2-to-1,
Yeah, something like that. So that's like
which is still a lot of amaretto.
I mean, you're basically drinking Drambuie at that point, although instead of honey, it's the almond liqueur.
I had a version of it that I really, really loved, which was I think it was called a. It was a riff on a Godfather. It was like the Godfather #2 or something like that. I want to say, but it was 2 ounces of single malt, blended single malt. I think I used Famous Grouse at the time. Half an ounce of dark rum and half an ounce of amaretto, and it was wonderful. That one was really quite good.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Amaretto is probably an underrated cocktail ingredient. Phil says tequila just does not taste good to me. It's a taste preference. Yeah, I get that. I don't drink a lot of tequila, mostly or any agave spirits. Mostly mezcal. Occasionally, it's what I want. Not always. It's definitely not like an everyday kind of thing.
I drink a lot more of it now that I'm down here in Arizona. We have a remarkably good selection of it down here. But one day I'd love to try to taste some stuff called sotol with you all. Sotol is a an adjacent species to the agave, very very similar. But it is a it's a wonderful drink, a little bit smokier than tequila, a little bit less vegetal, I would say in general. But I have some very interesting sotol that I've tried here and there. There's one called the Texas Door, no, Desert Door out of Texas. That was what it was called. It tastes like potting soil, like you smoked potting soil instead of peat
Hmm,
on a whiskey or something. Very very fascinating liquor.
interesting. I definitely want to try Sotol. Definitely. Um,
Mm.
okay, so what other single malt cocktails? I think a Rob Roy is an
There's the
obvious
Bobby
one.
Burns,
Okay,
Rob Roy.
what's the Bobby Burns?
Let me find that. I forget what's in it. I just remember that it exists.
Okay, so Rob Roy is a Manhattan, except instead of rye, you use single malt whiskey. So
Lovely one.
bitters, sweet vermouth, single malt whiskey.
A Bobby Burns is 1 ounce, or 1-to-1 Scotch and sweet vermouth, and then half an ounce of Benedictine.
Scotch, sweet vermouth, Benedictine. Okay.
A lot more to someone's taste if they're a little bit more into vermouth and things like that. Which grab a good vermouth, it'll be a nicer time. I mean, other the like classic one of the classic Scotch cocktails, Rusty Nail, Drambuie, and Scotch, very lovely.
Penicillin. How could I forget?
Penicillin, great cocktail, just gorgeous.
Have ordered that more than once at a bar.
I fully get that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually I went out for like cocktails and appetizers with my friend. And ordered penicillin. asked for a Lafroig float. Interestingly, they did
Mm.
not ask me to clarify or substitute, but later when I checked out the bar menu, turns out they didn't have Lafroig, they had Ardbeg.
Okay.
Which the reason I checked was because when I got the drink, I was like, this kind of tastes like it might be Ardbeg. And then I checked the bar menu. I was like, yes, in fact, they did not have Lafroig. They must have substituted Ardbeg. The bartender knows what he's doing, and my palate checks out. It
Excellent. Yeah.
was a good evening.
A cocktail that I've never had actually, but is a very popular Scotch cocktail, a Blood and Sand.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that one.
Equal parts Scotch, sweet vermouth, cherry hearing, and orange juice. Sounds quite lovely, but
Interesting. I'll look that up. The orange juice, I think, is what makes it the sandy thing. I remember that.
I believe so. Yeah.
I wonder what if you substituted the orange juice for orgeat.
I will. That's an interesting question. I would say before that, maybe try substituting the cherry hearing with orgeat and see what happens first.
Yes, Phill has anticipated my thought. I want an American penicillin made with ASMW. I'm
What
going
would
to
you call
try
it?
that. That's exactly what I was thinking, and I'm going to try that. I feel like anything that any cocktail that calls for single malt should work with ASMW. American single malt whiskey should work. And I think some of them are really interesting. I have so much so much Westward now. Oh, the brand reps are going to be so mad at me
So
that I
that
keep
much westward, really?
so much. I got a couple of distillery samples, 3 bottles at this point, I think. And I've been a member of the Quarterly Club. So where they send their quarterly release to all of the subscribers. I think I have 7 bottles, 7 or 8 bottles, 4 or 5 of which I've paid for, but I've gotten 3 distillery samples. That is a lot of stuff from one brand. The great thing about Westward is it genuinely makes a daily drinker. It is kind of
Really?
beery and like a nice relaxed round, right? They've got like a nice sweetness to it. They've got like a nice graininess to it. Um, they start from they care a lot about their beer. They start from that, distill it, age it in new oak casks. It's a lovely marriage of beer, single malt, and bourbon in terms of styles. It really, really works, especially as a daily drinker. It's such a nice, relaxed thing to be drinking. When my palate was off, I drank Westward Pinot cask all month.
Ooh.
As I don't do daily drinkers. Like there's stuff in the daily drinker category of like it doesn't have to be a special occasion, you can drink this whenever, right? People call that a daily drinker. I have so much stuff in my collection, I usually rotate through everything, right? I'll rotate through all of my daily drinkers. This was something I kept coming back to. That's the highest praise I have for Westward. I think it's the highest praise I could give to any whiskey, is that this is genuinely a daily drinker. Despite my options, I come back to this again and again and again.
I see.
I think so. First of all, I have so much Westward, I have to be making cocktails with it, or I'm never going to finish. I'm going to keep having more Westward and never have any less. I'm going to have to make cocktails, or it's never going to go away.
Phill has told you to make a westward penicillin and call it an amoxicillin.
I like it. Yes.
I have also sent you a Genji says I tried a cocktail called the Bielsa juice, inspired by a drink in the web cartoon series Hell of a Boss. I've seen that here and there.
Okay.
1 ounce whiskey, half an ounce of mead, a teaspoon of honey, a teaspoon of maple syrup, and quote a splash of club soda. And Genji used diet ginger ale naturally. Would really depend on what kind of mead you're using here as well, because that can be incredibly sweet or incredibly dry depending on how you're using that.
That was one of my thoughts as
I'm
well.
assuming this is the sweet kind of mead that we're talking here, though. Maybe that Polish style fortified mead. Maybe we're talking like Viking blood or whatever that stuff's called.
Yeah, I remember in the
That's
Discord
the
that
stuff.
we're both in, Genji was asking about different types of mead. I think he probably could tell us which he's using. But that was my first thought as well, sweet versus dry.
Yeah.
I
So
think
with
I
one
have
teaspoon,
both.
almost certainly using sweet. So most common stuff that you can find is going to be dansk mjød. They do a few different types. Viking blood, I think, is is a rosé colored mead. They're all of them are very, very sweet and fortified. That one uses, what's the stuff called? Hibiscus, I want to say, to color it.
Hmm.
But there's also ones that use hops and apple as their additives. But Genji used a sweet one from a brand called Median Hive, which I've never heard of, but I'm assuming is one of the more local brands, because a lot of mead gets very, very local,
Yeah.
especially mead, quite honestly.
I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try that. I'll get back to you,
Absolutely.
Genji, about how I think about that. That sounds like a delicious cocktail.
I've also sent you a cocktail,
Meridian.
Meridian Hive,
Okay.
Genji says.
Okay.
Okay, we'll keep that in mind.
Cool.
I've also sent you a cocktail that I thought you might get a real big kick out of, Doug.
Yeah.
The North Sea Oil, 1.5 ounces of Linny Aquavit, 3/4 ounce of Cochi Americano, half an ounce of Lafroig, and a fourth an ounce of Triple Sec. That sounds like a very, very fun one, but I do know that you somewhat enjoy Aquavit as well.
I don't know if I have triple sec. I have Contro. I think they substitute ish. Right?
Ish, yeah. Ish, yeah.
Yeah, I could try
I
that.
think
I got
Cointreau
the
is a bit richer than Triple Sec, but don't quote me on that.
I got the Contro specifically for cocktails and haven't used it yet. So looking forward to that. Yeah, more and more local meaderies. Yeah, I think mead is kind of taking off right now. Sort of like on the
It's
heels of craft beer. Like everybody's kind of like they've had their beer moment. Everybody's kind of getting tired of beer. We're having the whiskey moment. Maybe people are starting to get tired of whiskey. Um, Mead is a cool traditional beverage that I think people are getting into now.
Yeah, mead is a really, really awesome one. But especially because, like we were saying, yeah, it's a hugely local thing. The meadery that is right around here in Arizona does a lot of dry styles, a lot of sweet styles, but it's all most of it, I should actually say, is sparkling wine style meads. You can also, back in Baltimore, wonderful, wonderful meadery was making dry beer style meads. My favorite stuff was their Campfire that they released every winter. It was a very mildly smoky mead. But then you also get like Polish and Danish meads and things like that that are more fortified and incredibly sweet dessert styles right there. Super fun stuff.
It occurs to me, Phil's comment has made me realize it is almost 8 o'clock Pacific time. We've been
Oh my
rambling for
word.
quite some time. So Phil says, tired of whiskey? Never. And I say to you, in the Whiskey Lodge, we never get tired of whiskey. I want to take this opportunity to let's kind of get into our sign off. I want to take this opportunity to announce that we are having a hangout in the Whiskey Lodge. It's sad that this is such a big announcement because we don't do it often enough. But we're going to be having a hangout in the Whiskey Lodge tomorrow. We're going to be, in a way, saying goodbye to a friend. I won't make the announcement on stream. I'm not sure if the information is public. So for anybody who is in the community and wants to know, feel free to join us in our voice chat tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific time, which is unfortunately, I think 1 a.m. GMT or maybe 2 a.m. GMT. So
Oh
like
yeah, it would be, wouldn't it?
not great for the Europeans, but
Luckily on a Friday evening.
on a Friday evening, we're gonna do our lodge happy hour, which we haven't done in maybe half a year. I can't believe it's been that long, but I believe it has been 2 dry weeks since the last time that we did a hangout. Possibly we did last quarter and I just missed it because I was busy. But anyway, um, it's been good hanging out with you, Ian.
It's been wonderful, Doug. Yeah, it's been a lovely little time. I look forward to seeing you this coming week, and you have a great evening, man.
Yep. All right. We're gonna sign off now. We'll see you next week. But until then, we'll catch you in the lodge.
Don't
Cheers.
drink a handle of Jameson.
Don't drink a handle of Jameson. Well, cheers to that. You have anything to cheers me with?
I do still, yes. little bit of bamboo that I made earlier. We'll talk about that sometime. But
Excellent.
you have a great night, Doug.
Good night, Ian. Cheers.